This is lesson 2.3, adding and subtracting mixed numbers, and we're going to be in your notes packet on page number 7, so just only page 7 today. Remember, go ahead, pause the video as you need to so that you can fill in your notes, and we're going to go ahead and get started here. So, our previous lesson, we talked about adding and subtracting just regular fractions. Today, we're going to talk about adding and subtracting mixed numbers, and we're going to talk about a couple different strategies for that. But before we get started, if you remember, in the previous lesson, if we had 2 apples and 3 oranges, we remembered that there are 2 types of different things. So what we could do is we could say there were 5 of them, but we would have to flip around our label and actually call it fruit then. Which is different than if we had like 2 trucks and 7 trucks. And if we had 2 trucks and 7 trucks, we would just know that we had 9 trucks because they already had that common denominator there. So we're going to see that again today with our mixed numbers. We're going to go ahead and get started with question number 1. That's right here in your packet. And this is probably the easiest kind that you'll have. It's a whole number plus a fraction. So when you have a whole number plus a fraction, it's really easy. 5 plus 2/3 is just 5 and 2/3. You don't really have to do anything here. No common denominator needed because it's just a whole number and a mixed number. You could change this to an improper fraction if you needed to for your answer, but we're not going to worry about it for this. In number 2, we have 5.5 plus 6 and 2/5. So what we need to do is make that common denominator between 2 and 5, and that common denominator is going to be a 10. So we have 5/10, and 5 times 2 would be 10, so 2 times 2 would be 4. And if you want to go ahead and rewrite the whole problem, you can. So when we have mixed numbers, we're going to add the whole number parts together. So 5 plus 6 is 11. And then we're going to go ahead and add the fractional parts. Keep your denominator. 5 plus 4 is 9. So we have 11 and 9/10 for our answer. The next example, we have 1 and 2/3 plus 4 and 3/4. We need to create a common denominator here, which is going to be 12. And 3 times 4 is 12, so 2 times 4 would be 8. 4 times 3, so 3 times 3 would be 9. And you can rewrite the whole problem. Put your whole numbers together. 8 plus 9 is 17/12, and you should kind of have a little red flag going off here because that's not going to be a really good answer. So think about 17/12, and we talked about how to go from improper to mixed. What is 17/12 going to be as a mixed number? So 17/12 is a mixed number. 17 divided by 12 is 1. You're going to have 5 remaining, so it's going to be 5/12. That 1 has to go in with our whole number. So we're going to make our 5 actually is now a 6, and we have 5/12 there. In question number 4, this is kind of a complicated one. We have 5 minus 1 and 3/4. Now, if we kind of stack these on each other like this, and sometimes when I'm doing ones where I have to change denominators or I have to borrow stuff, I find that it's easier to actually write them out stacked. So as of right now, I have 5 and 0/4. So you would do the whole numbers and then you would subtract fractions, but I can't do 0 minus 3. So I'm going to have to borrow from my 5. That's going to become a 4. And I'm borrowing 1 whole. 1 with a denominator of 4 would be 4/4. So I'm going to cancel out that 0/4 there. Now, 4 minus 1 is 3. 4/4 minus 3/4 is 1/4. And that's my answer. Question number 5 here. This is a subtraction one. I'm going to have you go ahead, create for us common denominators. And why did I write an extra minus sign there? Oh, because that was for my fraction. And I'm going to have you create common denominators here and then subtract the whole numbers and then subtract your fractions. So between the 3 and the 2, our denominator is going to be a 6. 3 times 2, 2 times 2. 2 times 3, 1 times 3. 5 minus 2 is 3. 4 minus 3 is 1. And denominator stays. So we get 3 and 1/6. In the next example here, I'm looking at this one and I'm going to have 4 and 1/3 minus 2 and 4/5. I'm going to actually change these out here to common denominators when I rewrite. Between 3 and 5, I'm going to make a denominator of 15. 3 times 5, so 1 times 5. 5 times 3, so 4 times 3. And 5 minus 12 is not going to work. So again, I'm going to have to borrow. So this is going to become a 3, and I'm borrowing a whole, which is 15/15. I'm going to keep that same denominator. One whole is top on numerator and denominator the same. So on the top, I have 20/15, and 20/15 minus 12 is going to be 8/15, and 3 minus 2 is going to be 1. So that's our process of borrowing. Take a look at number 7 here. So we have negative 2.5 plus 3 and 3/4. So my answer is going to be positive because my 3 is bigger than a negative 2. So 3 is bigger than 2, so my answer would be positive in the end. But thinking about the adding rules, if you remember when we were adding integers, if the signs were different, you actually found the difference between the two numbers. So I'm going to actually be finding the difference here due to my integer rules. So I'm going to be doing 3 and 3/4 minus 2, and let's just make a common denominator here of 4. 3/4 minus 2/4 is 1/4, and 3 minus 2 is 1. So because my answer is positive, my answer is 1 and 1/4. Take a look at question number 8. I see integer rules here. This is going to stay, change, take the opposite. What type of number is my answer going to be? Is it going to be a positive or a negative? It's going to be a negative because I'm adding two negatives together. So all I need to do here is to create common denominators and then go ahead and add everything and just make sure I put that negative out front. So you can almost kind of temporarily drop the negatives if you want to, totally up to you. Between the 2 and the 5, my denominator is 10. 5 times 2, 4 times 2, 2 times 5, 1 times 5. So if I want to, I can keep those negative. Negative 4 plus negative 2 is negative 6. 5 plus 8 is going to give me a 13/10. And improper fraction here, so we're going to have to kind of do a little playing around here. 13/10 is 1 and 3/10, which means my final answer is negative 7 and 3/10 here. All right, we have a couple word problems now. Word problems deserve word answers. Don't forget about that. So we're going to start with question number 9, making a pocket-friendly decision. Rhea is stitching her own prom dress. If she has covered 1 1/10 feet of the fabric with beads and 2 3/10 of the fabric with lace, how many feet of fabric has she embellished? So we're looking for a total here. So we're going to be adding 1 1/10 plus 2 3/10. I'm going to have you go ahead and type in your answer here, and don't forget to put in a label. Adding your whole numbers together, you get 3. Adding your fractions, you get 4/10, which I would hope that you realized needed to be reduced to 2/5. And you should go ahead and put on there a label of at least feet. If you put feet of fabric, I would have been even more impressed, but feet would have been a good label. Number 10, it took Victor 8 4/5 hours to complete his science project and 5 3/10 hours to wrap up his art project. How many hours of work went into finishing the 2 projects? So since we're putting the 2 projects together, we are going to go ahead and add 8 4/5 plus 5 3/10. We need denominator here, and it looks like if we just swap this one over to tenths, we'll be good. So 8 plus 5 is going to give me 13. 8/10 plus 3/10 is 11/10. And I'm going to have you go ahead and rewrite this for our final answer. What would our final answer be? And go ahead and give me a quick label on that one. So 11/10 is just going to be 1 1/10. So if you add that back on, you're going to have 14 1/10 hours. And if you put hours of work, that's great, but bare bones minimum, we'd like to see at least the word hours. We have one more on here, question number 11. Noel had 8 and 2/3 hours to do his chores. If he finished them in 6 and 1/3 hours, how many hours did he have left? So he started with 8 and 2/3, and he finished them in 6 and 1/3. Can we do 2 minus 1? Yeah, so we're not going to have to borrow here. So 8 minus 6 is 2. 2/3 minus 1/3 is 1/3. And we'll put the label of hours left. So that wraps up our lesson for today on adding and subtracting fractions like with mixed numbers. So double check, always make sure that if you have to borrow that you're being careful about that, and always watch for those integer rules.